Hello and welcome to Point Made, the Centrepoint podcast by young people for young people. Today we're going to be talking about mental health, and this is a subject very close to my heart. My name is Lutterodt and I am a Centrepoint ex-resident, and I'm joined by some wonderful panellists to help us discuss this topic, which is quite often a stigma. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves first and we'll get into the topic of what mental health means to you.
My name is Sharon. So basically, I've just recently been offered a supported housing officer role by Centrepoint, but previously I have experience of being a support worker in a homelessness charity. So I'm just waiting before I start with Centrepoint. Previously, I was a Centrepoint resident. I also volunteered in the policy team for Centrepoint. I have experience of mental health, so mental health topic is really important to me. It's really an essential topic to talk about in society due to the stigma that's attached to mental health. I've been in hospital due to mental health. I've had counselling, therapy through Centrepoint that has supported me to become more independent today.
Amazing. We'll get a lot from you about the topic.
Yes,
and would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Noor. I'm currently still receiving floating support from Centrepoint. I was never a resident. I've always received floating support. I think what mental health means to me is such a broad question, but I think it's something I'm living and learning and figuring out for myself, I think, as I grow up.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm Ben, I live in the Wembley area. I have ASD, or autistic spectrum disorder, which in terms of mental health makes it difficult to communicate, build relations and understand emotions. But overall, I've learned to manage these things. So I'm here today to talk about that with you guys, I guess.
So I do actually have a list of questions, but now you've said that, I would like to ask, what are some of the stigmas that you've experienced, because of mental health? Let's start around this way.
Starting with me?
Yeah.
So I've graduated. I'm now a social worker and I've got a job. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I think throughout my whole career, university time and starting my career, I was really worried about, probably not getting a job once they know, oh, she's been depressed before, or she has terrible anxiety. Like, what if she can't handle the job? I think I was very afraid of being stigmatized in that sense and seen as someone who's basically unreliable because of my mental health issues. I think that was my biggest struggle with mental health.
So my biggest struggle with mental health is definitely being a university student, studying sociology and politics. I felt that if I overshared what I was going through, I felt like I would experience judgment because of how people view mental health, especially with depression, anxiety disorders. A lot of it is attached with stigma in society. There's a lot of a tarnished view towards it, and people that experience mental health are quite marginalised in society and ignored by the government. So I felt like I couldn't share what I was going through to my university lecturers. I felt like I had to keep it to myself. But having the services, the NHS, Centrepoint being there for me, it helped me to go to the point of healing. So
Yeah, that's very deep. Point of healing. That's really important.
Yes.
Ben, you've touched on it, but do you want to maybe give us another pointer?
So I found that in terms of communication, I found humor was the best way to sort things out. But this sort of became a problem within itself. My diagnosis started to become my personality to a lot of people. I would be introduced as the autistic friend, which was unfortunate, which would turn me into a sort of lightning rod for jokes and everything, where I felt at the end of every joke, even though I enjoyed the self-deprecating humor and I was fine with it, it made my friendships feel hollow in a lot of ways, and it made it just that bit harder, not understanding why I was the end of these jokes. So.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think for me, everything you've all touched on, I can relate to in some ways. The work that I do, I have to be very social. I work in PR and marketing as well, and I often have to be the brave Kai and go out there and show the smiley, happy Kai. But there are days when I'm really struggling, and how do you relate? How do you tell them that, or tell people that? And I found that I haven't been brave enough to actually be able to find those safe spaces, particularly within work, because I don't want to be stigmatized and then be known as Kai who can't get the job done or who can't be social, you know. And so I would actually like to ask you guys, how do you think there can be a bit more of a balance to really sort of break past these stigmas and let people be more aware about mental health? Because I found that when I do find that person that I can actually be honest with and say, do you know what, I'm going through a bit of a down time, you know, or I'm feeling a bit depressed, or I'm suffering from anxiety and actually today I can't go out. They've also told me either themselves or a family member has a similar situation or diagnosis, and you realise that you're not by yourself. So have you had any instances where you've opened up and found that actually I'm not alone, there are other people that are going through the same thing as me?
So I'll go first.
Go for it.
Basically, like I said earlier, in society there's a lot of stigma attached to mental health, and a lot of people feel like they can't open up to their friends, to their family. They have to keep it to themselves. Statistics show that men are more likely to commit suicide because of the stigma that's attached to it. There's also 1 in 4 people in society that have mental health issues. So I feel like one thing that will help with the stigma is actually finding a community of people that will understand you. One community that's helped me is the church. I feel like the church has really been helpful in my healing and me being able to understand and know myself and navigate ways. So religion has helped me to know myself more, and by knowing myself I was able to be more bold in myself, more confident, more assured in everything that I'm doing. And also it's led to my healing. It's led to me being more independent, living alone, being a student that's in our final year. It's been me being in my final year now. I'm just like, wow, like it's only the confidence that I have in myself, and only by the grace, as a Christian, I say, only by the grace of God, that I've actually been able to get past a lot of my anxiety and depression and nearly be a graduate, which is being the first graduate in my family is amazing for me, is an achievement. So I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
That sounds really empowering and enriching. Yeah. What about you?
For me, it was definitely figuring out, of course, a good support system, people you can rely on, and as you said, tell them, oh, I'm having a hard day today. But I think as someone who has an anxiety disorder and does struggle with depression, and I do tend to relapse in it, let's say, because I've struggled with depression for over 5 years, sometimes it's very repetitive, so it's almost like it gets hard. It becomes difficult for you to then go back to that same friend probably and tell them again, oh, I'm feeling depressed again. It almost makes it harder every time you relapse. So for me, it became about kind of channeling other people's, bravery of opening up to me. So for example, as you were talking about men, how for me at least, my male friends, they don't really open up. But when I'm sitting with them sometimes and they're talking to me about their social anxiety, and I'm like, what? Since when? You're the loudest. You're literally the loudest in the group. So things like that, things that I don't, I don't perceive them as someone who's anxious or who has gone through a hard time or who's ever been depressed. And when they're sharing that stuff with me, it can help me be like, oh gosh, like if they're opening up to me, I can do the same. I'd either open up to them or I'd go back to that one friend I trust and say, I'm having a hard time again. And thank God I've had a really good support system, so they will be there for me. But I think it's just sometimes when you're in that rut, it's really hard to believe that people are truly there for you. And then again, honestly, if nothing works, you've got your faith. I'm in the same boat.
Amazing.
So yeah.
That's amazing.
Ben, do you have a support system or a circle of friends that you can fall back on?
I've found that opening up to people has gotten easier over time, but I've also found that opening up to the wrong people can happen every now and then. So I think my support systems are mostly professional. Even though I'm slowly coming off a lot of those support systems and managing a lot on my own, I still feel the need to check in, because even when I'm doing well, quote unquote well. Things are good, the good days are coming, and there's not many bad days in between. I still need to work on my mental health to prevent relapsing, which I haven't been doing as much as I should be doing, I think.
I think you make a really important point there, that, you know, there are professionals out there to help us and support us, and sometimes if you open up to the wrong people, that could also backfire and actually make you feel even worse. So just always knowing who you can go to, the other professionals, that's their job to offer these supports. I think this is really important, and it should actually be more accessible for young people to be able to find this information. And I'd like to think that actually Centrepoint does a lot to be able to steer people in the right direction. So why do you think mental health is more prevalent with young people as opposed to their counterparts, older adults?
Adults have, you know, it's easier for them to go and access support because they kind of sometimes know what's going on. I'm not saying all adults do, but they've got the better end of the stick. I think I'm just looking back at when I was in school, you know, you're finding yourself, you're kind of lost, you don't know what you identify as, who you identify as, you want to belong in a group, you want to blend in, you don't want to stand out, you literally want to blend in, you want to be accepted, you don't really know what you want to be accepted into even. You're figuring all of that out. That's going to bring some nervousness, anxiety anyways, and then you have some instability at home, let's say, and, you know, other aspects of your life that makes that even harder and does make you more susceptible to other mental health issues. And if you don't have people looking over you and helping you out and being patient with you and helping you figure it out and guiding you into, you know, feeling better, I think these things can just kind of get worse. They can just kind of snowball until you become an adult, and then you're like, oh, I get it all. I get everything that happened to me when I was younger.
Oh, absolutely. And then throw in being homeless as well and a young person. You know, I think the stats of the disparities between young people who are homeless, suffering from mental health, compared to, you know, non-homeless young people is about 20%. So that's quite a lot. Yeah. So tell us about some of the ways that you sought support, and how easy was it to access the support you?
So I've accessed support through, so when I used to live in Centrepoint about 6 years ago, I was able to have psychotherapy after leaving the hospital, which was really helpful. Like, it helped, the talking therapy helped me to deal with the anxiety and depression that I was experiencing, and helped me to become more resilient in dealing with work and university. Also, I feel like the NHS has been helpful. However, I feel like there's a lot of pressure and a lot of long waiting times in the NHS. So I feel like a lot of young people are not able to get the support they need.
And I'm not sure what exactly needs to be done. My personal experience at the age of 13 was when I started to notice something was wrong. I noticed younger as well, but I was afraid of mental health services, specifically social services, because from an Asian household, particularly my Asian household, they were sort of demonized, they were antagonized, they were the enemy. If I were to talk to them, they would take me away. And because I had no idea what being taken away meant, I sort of had this weird, childish, cartoon book sort of idea of a man of a rucksack or like a little bag of money running away from a bank in a striped shirt. Anyway, a hamburglar. Anyway, so I was afraid to contact social services or to contact any mental health stuff. I did eventually talk to a teacher who referred me to a counsellor, and the counsellor led me to the CAM service, and then the CAM service led me to inpatient admission for about 2.5 years at the age of 15. So I left my home, and that was hard, but not as hard as I thought it was going to be, weirdly enough. I felt at home for the first time, which is something it's one of the later questions as well. So.
Wow, that's really interesting. I can relate to some degree about the family aspect. I grew up in a Ghanaian household, and I remember my auntie saying, "Oh, you don't go and report." We kept the one rule was that you keep what happens at home private. So it meant that I couldn't speak to the counsellors about what I was going through. I also didn't really even know the terms of what I was going through, because words like depression, anxiety, to be very honest, I've only just discovered that what I've been feeling all this time for my teenage years is anxiety, you know, and I'm like however old now. So these words were not in our household, and nor were we encouraged to even seek support. So it wasn't until I was actually at Centrepoint that I raised some of these points with my caseworker and got referred, and learning certain words and reading up on them and realizing that it's not just me. For the longest time, I just thought it was me because no one in my house spoke about it. And I don't think that my family meant it in a bad way. It's just when you are a minority, you probably have, you know, it a bit harder. And I think for them, especially the older generation, they just wanted me to not fail. And so their way of protecting me, I suppose, was to just be like, you know, chin up and get on with it and be strong. I remember my aunt always saying, be strong. Be strong. And sometimes you can't be strong. And the best thing I could have done for myself is actually seek help, particularly when I'm not feeling very strong.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to point out the wording "strong" there. I actually relate to that quite a lot. So I am a Filipino, and every time I've been in an A&E department, I will find fellow Filipinos. Sometimes as staff, sometimes as other people coming through, and they will notice that I'm Filipino, and they will always say the sort of sentence "Filipino strong," because it's sort of, we need to be strong for some reason, and it's I think it's encouraging and what they would want to hear, maybe, and that's why they use that language for us, but maybe it's not what we need at that time.
I think also, you know, we have a responsibility for ourselves to take the information and use it to what we can. If it's good, if we find that it's empowering, then take it. If we find that actually, I understand what you're trying to do, but actually right now I don't need that, then we just sort of have to let it fly away, you know? Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. So, right, so you know we're going through quite a difficult time in society, and the cost of living is really affecting, well, everyone across the UK, but probably more so, and not probably more so actually, more so young people, young homeless people. Let's start with how you feel that this is affecting young people.
I grew up in foster care, so I didn't realise until last year that I have a lot of financial trauma. I didn't know that was even a thing. It took me a while to realise. I was like, I think you're traumatised. And I was like, by money? I don't really understand how that works. And it took me a lot of research to figure out, oh, I understand what's going on. Because now that I'm living independently, I've noticed I would bulk buy things as if like I'm preparing for an apocalypse. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
That's so interesting.
And this was before COVID. Like, the way people lived in COVID is how I live my life.
Right, okay.
So I was like, wait, why are you buying 4 shampoos? It's actually okay. So I kept doing these things, and I would say to myself, because what if one day you don't have money? And I'm thinking, okay, but you have to pay rent for this place, and you're stocking it up with so much stuff, you're going to be fine. Like, it's not logical. And I'm trying to find the logic, and I never did, but that's just how I've lived my life. And it was the financial trauma that I had in foster care and that I had when I moved out, and, you know, the lack of support that I had when I moved out to supported accommodation for university, and then being homeless. But I was living with my best friend's family, but technically homeless. So all this time, all I ever worried about the most was, oh my God, these bills, and, you know, I'm going to need money for my future. I can't live like this. Even when I was in university, I knew, you've only got this place for like 2-3 years. What are you going to do then? So it's like, it never ends. And now that I'm living independently with my sister, I was like, okay, you finally figured it out. You've got a budget. All your bills come under this amount of money. You're going to be fine. And then the bills go up. And I said, I can't do this. I can't do this.
You've found that balance.
Exactly. Just when I thought I had it all figured out, for just a bit, like I said, okay, just for the next 2 years, I'm going to be fine. And I can, like, you know, have my new job, and that can be the most, you know, unstable thing, I guess. That can be the thing you can focus and figure out now. I felt like I had to do it all over again. So it almost feels like how I was in first year university is how I am in my first year of my job, when now I need to budget all over again. And I'm a believer of like, your wage can go up, but your cost of living shouldn't. Like, try your best to keep it to a minimum. And I'm like, well, now it's not in my control. If my bill is saying pay £80 more for something, like, what am I going to do now?
Does that cause any stress on you?
Oh, 100%. Like, of course, I experience extreme anxiety over these things, and I'm the kind of person that I'm thinking about it all the time. I think it's very hard as someone who has anxiety to remember that some things are not in your control. So I'll be trying to sleep, I'll be eating, and I'll be with friends having a good time, and I'm not spending any money right now, but it's like I'm losing money. I keep feeling like I'm always losing money, and it makes me feel literally sick. Then I'm like, oh, I just want to sleep. I want to sleep this off. But I can't. I literally can't sleep, because all I'm thinking about is, oh my God, like, you don't have enough money for rent. Or especially during this summer, I mean, it was my last year of university, I had to make the big decision of being like, you've got to let go of your part-time job. You've got to focus on your dissertation. You've got to finish that up. And that was so difficult for me. And it's almost like I had to choose my mental health and, ironically, my mental health and my education over paying my bills and worrying about that. I had to live off my savings. But now that I've lived off my savings, and yeah, it was okay. Now I have this terrible guilt. Like, how could you do that? For the girl who always stocks up everything and, you know, saved that much money, you've spent it all. And I'm like, I wasn't living lavish.
It's almost like you've got two people.
100%.
One's like, you know, the one that's stocked up, and the one's like, give yourself a break. Like,
yeah.
you were healing.
Exactly.
You were healing.
I think there's so much guilt with that, but
Yeah. But also, I hope you're not too hard on yourself.
working on it.
Working on it. It's a process.
So I feel like the cost of living has had a negative impact on me, because I've had to deal with the increase in rent, food, everything, and it's like my wages have not increased. So how am I going to manage with this cost of living that has changed, you know? And it's like, it creates a vicious cycle for young people that are not working, that are on universal credit. It creates a vicious cycle of mental health issues that constantly keeps returning because of the low income. I mean, many homeless young people are experiencing mental health issues because of the fact that they cannot afford food and their rent bills and their service charge. So it's like, it causes more issues than not.
I think it's not just a problem with the cost of living, it's the cost of surviving.
Tell us.
They come up slowly, these small things that increase in price. So travel increases a small amount, and you think, oh, okay, that's a bit weird, but okay, I'll be fine. And it starts to accumulate day after day after day after day. Your basic necessities when you're trying to become healthy and getting the right foods and stuff. Okay, yeah, I can't afford this gluten-free thing, but I can afford this thing, but it seems to have doubled in price already. For me, it was pasta, because pasta is my home food. It's my favorite food. I can use anything with it. But I've started to rely on a lot more processed foods and things that have not been healthy. And everything is just going up and up and up, and it's not even living anymore. It's trying to get through it all, almost like a zombie-like fashion of sort of going from one thing to the next. And I 100% agree with I just want to sleep it off. I hope I close my eyes and this is all just a weird dream. Maybe tap my shoes 3 times and say, oh, no place like home. But we're still struggling.
But you know the sleeping off thing, just to come back to that. So yesterday I had a bit of an anxiety attack, and I had 2 social engagements to go to, and I really was not in the mood to go out there. But in my line of work, you kind of have to show your face, otherwise you're almost forgotten. And I just had to put on my mask and smile. But there is a magic about sleeping things off. This morning I woke up and I was actually feeling like fresh slate. We're starting new. what happened yesterday happened. Let's try and shake it off. Obviously, it's not always that easy because I also spent 3 months in bed over the summer. So I know myself as well. But when I do have that energy to lift myself up, I just run with it.
It's weird, but there's this expectation that we're going to be fine. You know? Oh, we were young once. It was completely fine when we were young, so it's completely fine for them. They don't understand that if we can't maintain our mental health or physical health or any sort of health and relationships and everything, then we can't feed back into this society.
I think it's also something Ben said about health, specifically about picking certain foods. I think the cost of living issue can really mess up people's habits. So for me, for example, I remember in university people were like, "You're rich." I'm like, "No, I just really know how to budget my money and buy the right healthy foods." And I could afford to do that at that time, but now, no, you're not going to catch me buying strawberries. Why are they so expensive? It's so ridiculous. And then I don't want to buy fruits, right? And if I'm going to make a meal, if I'm going to cook my dinner, let's say, you have to buy 5 ingredients, 10 ingredients, whatever it is. I'm so guilty buying them because they've all gone up a little. So then I'm just frustrated. I'm like, I don't want to buy this. Oh, I'll figure it out. I go home and I'm upset, and I don't even allow myself to be fully upset about it. I don't truly acknowledge it as much. I think since the cost of living has gone up, I've been quite in denial. But then I'm gonna order takeaway because I need to eat. And it is more expensive, but then again, it's like enough portion of a food, let's say, that I'm going to eat it, let's say, for 2 days, and I'm not going to worry for 2 days kind of a thing. I'm like, no, I've got food in the fridge. But if I have to buy ingredients and cook it, I feel like all that time I'm doing it, I'm just thinking about how much money I've lost instead of it actually providing myself with, well, it's a necessity, you know, and enjoying my food. I remember a time in my life where my whole diet kind of was it was all about accommodating my mental health. Like till this day, I will religiously have blueberries because they help me with my anxiety.
They're so good.
Blueberries are
expensive, like £2 for like a small portion.
Exactly.
But we would justify getting a takeaway, you know. So that's why I think blueberries are amazing.
I definitely encourage the healthy eating.
No,
definitely.
100%.
It's so helpful. Like if you're experiencing depression, anxiety, having like some like pineapple, some oranges, some vitamin C will help you.
Yeah.
It's just
hard
saying I love you to your body, isn't
having
it?
that budgeting,
it helps me stay afloat, basically. Yeah.
Like having that budgeting support and actually implementing budgeting for yourself, it's like it will change your life, and it will improve, and saving up for the future will help you when you actually move out from Centrepoint so that you can afford housing, because the cost of housing has increased.
It's like you taking care of yourself.
And those are usually the first steps to feeling better.
Exactly.
All those
I agree.
little good things you do for yourself
Exactly.
amount to that day where you wake up and you're like, I'm feeling stronger.
A lot of the times it's been just like one cooking session I've done alone for dinner, let's say, in my house, and after that I'm such a different person, and I'm literally, after I sleep and then I'm a new person tomorrow, I feel so much better. But if I can't do that because of these living costs, it's going to be a cycle. How am I meant to get better?
Ben, do you want to add to that?
I've become so creative recently with meals.
Go for it, tell us.
Which is great, in a weirdly bad way. I am mixing foods together that this is in my cupboard, this is in my cupboard, let's try this out. And then it's horrible. But I have to eat it because...
Yeah, waste not, want not.
Waste not, want not. I've also been stockpiling before the pandemic as well. I always have canned foods on me, so that's beans, tomatoes, anything you can put in a can. Filipinos love spam, which I'm not sure if it's a wartime food, but we love it for some reason. Well, my family in particular loves it. They just fry that stuff, put it on some rice. That's a meal. Anyway, and what was I? Yeah. Also, I do have a drawer in my room which is just full of ramen, which is great. Because, you know, it's beautiful. You chop a spring onion on there, it's perfect.
Are you guys saving for the apocalypse or something? Like,
you know what?
Ramen. I need to say something like that. I've somehow made it the healthiest thing ever.
give us the healthy version.
Oh my god, it is insane. I cook my ramen, whichever one it is, the spiciest one, you know, there's like plenty different ones. Make my ramen. I've got my seaweed on the side. I find it on offer and I hold on to it for dear life. I've stockpiled on salmon in my freezer. Like, my sister's really annoyed. She's like, why do you keep buying so much salmon? If I find it on offer, I'll buy 5 packets.
But that's such a good idea because
I
salmon's
stockpile on
expensive.
that. I take it out the night before. I put it in the fridge. Next morning, I'm gonna fry it up. I fry it up, and then I put mushrooms and some other stuff, and spring onions, and then a crispy fried sunny side up egg on my ramen. And then I'm gonna be honest, I actually never even get to finish the ramen. I get to eat everything else because it's full of protein. But if I had it all alone, it would be really silly. So it's like ramen's like my base, and I get to eat a little bit. I'm like, oh, that was such a healthy meal.
That sounds like a Michelin-starred packet ramen.
If you're cooking the ramen noodles in the pot, I like to, instead of frying the egg, putting it on top, because then I have to clean another pan. I like to...
I've tried to fry an egg in a saucepan before.
Oh, no, I'm not like that, no. You fill it with water, you have the ramen cooking, and then at some point you'll just crack an egg in there. And if you can do it without cracking the yolk, you're fine. Even if you do crack the yolk, it's still good. You put the lid on top for like 2 minutes, and that's a poached egg. That's a poached egg.
I think we should definitely have a mental health food program because you guys can like share more of your.
You'd be the fruit board.
Like, I literally, because even me, I like on a weekly basis, I juice like fruit and veg for the week, and I'm telling you, it's so good for my mental health. Like, instead of having coffee and like fizzy drinks, it keeps me alert during the day because I've had a history of like low iron. So having like spinach in my juice, it's like, it gets me going, it keeps me alert for my classes. Like, 1 month I didn't do it and I saw the difference. Like, I was so tired. 100%. I was going to my fizzy drinks. Like, and if you want to improve your health, go for it. Like, build that structure in your lifestyle so you can get better.
Is there anything else that you want to add to this discussion?
I feel like one thing that's really helped with my mental health is going to the gym, and it's been amazing. Like, if I'm having like a down day, just going to the gym and getting those endorphins, I would leave there being happy for no reason. And it's like, if you can't afford the gym, go to the park and have a walk. Like, the nature, the scenery, it will lift up your mood.
For me personally, what I do all by myself is art therapy. At first that sounded very silly to me because I just didn't imagine myself. I love art, I enjoy it so much, but I didn't think it would be like therapy for me. But I remember one day when I was just really depressed and I just started painting, and I've never painted in my life, by the way. I just started painting and I was like, wait, this is the best thing ever. That's one kind of art I had never done. So now I'm literally obsessed with it. Like, give me a paintbrush, I'll start painting my walls probably at this point.
Finding a community that you are happy to be in, sort of a community that can help be productive. So this is not just maybe a group of friends, maybe this is a social club, maybe even an arts club, or some sort of sports club or something, anything where it's a community, a group where you can talk to people who are all different people, but they share one thing and they have that one link, so you can learn more, because we don't all have to be the same.
100%,
that feeds in very nicely to perhaps our last question of one piece of advice that you would give to a young person perhaps struggling with their mental health, and they're watching this to get some insight and to feel a hug. What advice would you give? Maybe one piece that we go around.
Okay, so I would say one thing is to just love yourself. Like, be there for yourself and be patient with yourself in whatever you look for to help your mental health. So either that's exercise, healthy eating, psychology, you need to be patient. You need to love, and patience is a root of loving yourself, being kind to yourself, just going through. And also meditation. Meditation is helpful to deal with like anxiety, depression. It helps. So like, just being a friend to yourself, being your own best friend, like, and just being kind.
Of course, it's tough to be your own best friend when you're feeling at your lowest. Yeah. But also, just to touch on when you said meditation, I recently was told that meditation isn't just sitting there going, meditation is being present.
Definitely.
So it could even be you lying in bed and yes, you're low, but also just like letting thoughts leave your mind and be present as you are in bed.
In the moment.
Feeling low, that's fine. But just acknowledge that feeling, because it won't last forever. And so that's another type of and meditation could even be just could be cooking, that's another type of meditation.
Exactly.
So I think if we can break those stigmas of what meditation is, it gives us so much freedom and like we've discovered something about ourselves, because actually we do. A lot of us do meditate.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into mindfulness, which is another thing which I think is becoming a lot more popular at the moment, and it's amazing. It is a form of meditation in a way. It's about doing your everyday things and thinking about them, but not overthinking about them, sort of having the thoughts just kind of skate by. Because I think this might be a quote somewhere, but I'm probably going to get it wrong. My advice in general is just, in time this shall pass. Something along those sorts of lines. So things come, things go, and this feeling of sadness or depression or anything, this feeling will pass. Now, will it get better? It might not, but it will pass, and it will continue to come and go. And when you're able to get to that stage where you can ask for help, and I encourage you to do so no matter what stage you're in, when you're able to and you have the confidence, build that foundation so that you're able to lift yourself up easier from the falls.
Oof, I really felt that. Woof, I got a shiver.
I think with manifesting and mindfulness and not manifesting, it was mindfulness and meditation. Sorry, but I think all of it.
Manifesting is important as well.
I think all of it ties into the same element that's about being present, and I think that's the problem with mental health issues, with having anxiety. You're never present. You're always thinking about 10 other things but the thing in front of you, and you're trying to multitask because you think if you're doing 5 things in your head it's going to make your life easier, but you make that present moment 10 times harder. So I think all of it is all about, and even spirituality is all about grounding yourself. I think those are the common elements. And sometimes, I mean, I've been meditating since I was 15, and I can tell you, I would say I actually started meditating this year. I think it's taken me years to actually be present when I'm meditating, because I am doing that thing where I'm just sitting and I'm like, okay, the light bulb moment's gonna happen now. And I think when it comes to advice, this one was a shock to me as well, but I think the best thing that I do for myself now when I want to feel that hug kind of a feeling, it's that no matter how bad my life is, I just need to be like, okay, you're this old right now. Think about if a 5-year-old version of you was here. And I'm so happy. Because it's like, you really underestimate how far you've come a lot of the time, the smallest of things. I mean, when I was younger, I would watch movies and see like these like teenager girls having sleepovers, or like a girl having her own house and walking and baking cookies. And I was like, I want that one day. And I'm like, wait, I do that like every other month. That is literally me. So it's a really good feeling to like you get your fantasy basically.
And I would also say, like, to someone that's struggling with mental health, is to like get help. Speak to a friend. If you don't have a friend, then there's mental health support lines that you can refer to. There's the Samaritans, there's the NHS. You can speak to professionals that will be able to provide you the support that you need for your mental health.
Family, friends, professionals. I think it's about also acknowledging the responsibility of that person in your life. So if this is a sibling or a parental figure or someone in your life who's supposed to be taking care of you or has that sort of duty of care, then you might feel the pressure to have to open up to them and tell them things. Obviously a professional, it would be geared for the situation, but not everyone can access that of it, quite unfortunately. Also, we have to remember that we are not a burden. 100%. And sometimes when we tell a friend we've known for a couple months that we're going through a very serious depression and they don't respond in the same way that we would hope, maybe not the professional response, we don't know what to do. Because that person maybe hasn't attached that sort of situation or is not mentally prepared. Because I find myself, if I want to open up even to a professional, I will sort of ask them, are you ready to hear this? Because I think both people have to be ready in that conversation as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Wow. Well, we made a lot of points. Point made. I just want to thank you guys I want to thank you all so much for creating this safe space to open up. I mean, we could have spoken for even longer. It's mental health is just one of those topics that, unfortunately, because there hasn't been many safe spaces, a lot of things have probably been kept inside that when we do open up, you know, we want to just keep going and on. But I hope that this is a lot of food for thought for anyone watching, but also for us as well, to understand that we do have a support system. And I know that when we are going through these issues, obviously it's hard to remember that we do have a support system, but hopefully we'll also remember this conversation had, and look back at the video and and write down some pointers that we've discussed. And yeah, thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. This has been our first Point Made in-person recording, and thank you very much to our panellists for sharing so much insight of their lived experience on the mental health topic.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, you're stealing my words.